as a musician, I am not just a classical musician. I believe that I'm more. To be a great tabla player in this time and age, or really in any time and age, you first and foremost you have to have had a intensive, extensive, well imparted, well imbibed talim, learning. Thereafter, you have to have listened to a variety of performing styles. You must have the technique to support what you've learned, to be able to reproduce what you've learned. For that, you have to have practiced. Without practice, you cannot have the technique. Well, music happened to me without a choice. I was born into a family of musicians. My father is the great maestro of the tabla, Pandit Shankar Ghosh. My mother is a very well-known singer, Sanjukta Ghosh. My first cousin is another very well-known tabla player, Swapan Chaudhuri. His mother was the first musician, so to say, in the family. My father's elder sister, who used to be a singer, she used to do playback for films in the 1940s. And then, of course, the professional tabla player in the family happened with my father. So, as I was growing up in this family of musicians, with my mother and father both being teachers and musicians, I was surrounded by music.
Man meets woman.
And eventually, from a very early age, I started learning tabla. I think I must have been about 2.5 when my father started teaching me tabla. And later on, I also learned the sarod. And I was being trained by Ustad Dhyanesh Khan Sahab. I had a Gandaband ceremony from Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab. So, music was quite wholesome in my life.
4 months later.
I was born in Calcutta. Before I was 1 year old, I was taken to the US because my father and my mother were teaching at the Ali Akbar College of Music. And we stayed on there till I was more than 5 years old. And when we came back to India, I was almost 6. Then when I came back to India, I went through a very serious phase of studying in regular school, and then in college, and then doing a master's in literature, which was a parallel in my life. And I think my struggle always was to get the X number of riyazes in, the X number of study hours in, and a little bit of play here and there as a child. So it was a bit of a struggle because my father was very strict with me in terms of my riyaz. He would wake me up. My school bus would come at 6:30 in the morning, so he would wake me up at 5 o'clock and get me to do an hour of practice, or 45 minutes at least. And there were times when he used to even pour water on me because I wasn't waking up. In the beginning, I used to play my father's style verbatim, if one may use that word. I used to just want to play like him. Three, 4, 5 years down the line, I realized I was doing something wrong. Because however well I played, people would compare and people would say, "Oh, Shankar Das, that composition you just played, oh, I remember hearing Shankar Das play that, in the year 1967, and oh, he was, So I realized that, I would have to do something else. I would have to change gear to make my mark. I think the good thing that happened to me was I was training in Carnatic music for a long time under Pandit S. Sekhar, and I tried to use those, create different sounds, even take sounds or vanis, syllables from mridangam playing, and incorporate them into North Indian tabla playing. Even calculations, I would use calculation. Of course, my father is a great, one of the most influential people in the math of tabla playing. So that was something I already knew, and I was gifted with, through birth with that. And but I was also bringing in a lot of Carnatic compositions, Carnatic calculations, and those I think and the usage of other syllables I think started making my tabla sound different. I believe that the sound you create has to address pretty much the range of frequency that is available to a musician. So of course, you have the mid-range, which is the right hand, the tabla. You have the lower register, which is the baya. But you do not have the really low, like the bass guitar or the double bass, which is there in other traditions. You do not have that. You do not have something like a kick drum, which is one octave lower than the baya. So I added on the Hansonic SH101 bass guitar tone to the kit to get that really nice punchy low sound. I added on a low sa tabla, which then would create a sense of dignity into that kit, because I was always careful that, because people were criticizing, people were after me that, oh, what is he doing? I said to myself, I'm going to bring dignity to what I do. So you have the low sa combined with the Hansonic SH101 tone, and you get a great sound. It's just like boom, it roots the entire music. Today I find myself actually playing a lot like my father. When I play tabla solo, I follow his format, what he created. I bring in my nuances, but I feel more attracted than ever before. Maybe I feel I have the opportunity now, I have the freedom now to play what he played and what he set as trends. I'm grateful to have been born to Pandit Shankar Ghosh, and to have had Pandit Ravi Shankar, to have had my mother, Sanjukta Ghosh, so many influences in my life, Munawar Ali Khan Sahab's house, all of that. So I had a lot of exposure as a musician, different energies, different exposure, and it gave me the sense of musicality, which is not restricted to a gharana or a certain kind of playing, that you cannot think beyond those walls. So I was never taught to not think beyond something. My father always said, oh, you like the sound of that? Okay, try and play it. So I would do that. Even if it was a drummer, now I would listen to many drummers, and there were movements in tabla I would bring which were drum techniques. I still do. And it sounds great, so I feel it's validated if it sounds great.
What I do when I'm playing, I do all my style of playing, calm, and then I wait for the psalm to finish off. I just insert. So it comes on beat.